Welcome to Now and Forever, a series of 10-minute reflections on good news spirituality, sponsored by the Charles and Catherine Free Family Foundation, headquartered in Bethlehem, Pennsylvania, and brought to you from Our Lady of the Sacred Heart Parish here in Watertown, New York. Hi, I'm Father Vince Free, a missionary of the Sacred Heart. In this program, we explore an apostolic spirituality that's based on an acceptance of God's love. We're doing this to see whether it can serve as a grace-filled response to the Church's call for a new evangelization. Please join us in this pursuit. Spirituality, misnomers. This sounds interesting. Okay, we'll go right to the text here. In 1609, from numerous articles, letters, and flyers that he had written primarily for lay people in the world, St. Francis de Sales published his classic work on spirituality. He addressed his words to a certain Philothea, a fictional name for a person he saw as representative of his audience. As he explains in his introduction, the current prevailing opinion of the time was that, quote, only monks and nuns had the time and the conditions suited for leading a life of devotion, unquote. Even bishops like St. Francis himself were supposedly so busy with church affairs that they could neither study nor teach the basics of a devout Christian life. St. Francis disproved this common opinion both by his writings and by his exemplary life and pastoral accomplishments as a bishop. The supposition behind the common view was that, quote, no one ought to aspire to the palm of Christian piety as long as he lives amidst the press of temporal affairs, unquote. Well, if you don't smell a rat in that Pharisaical phrase, you may have forgotten that Jesus said, I did not come to call the righteous but sinners. Matthew 9, verse 13b. Yet the tendency for ordinary people to see themselves as ill-prepared for cultivating Christian spirituality can't be blamed entirely on the sanctimonious sentiments of the self-righteous. Got that? Oh. Remember that at the miraculous catch of fish, Peter fell at the knees of Jesus and said, depart from me, Lord, for I am a sinful man. Luke 5, chapter 5, verse 8. We don't like words like piety or devout life. They sound pretentious or inconsistent with how we feel about ourselves. The problem is that, like Peter, we also think of these words only in reference to ourselves rather than in our relationship to Christ. Of course, on our own, we're worse than dirt because dirt doesn't sin. But we are ordained to be like Philothea, whose name means one who is in love with God. Therein lies our true identity, fulfillment, and lasting joy. Well, well, well. Yes, well, you're smiling, Vicki. Does that leave you, what's this all about? Misnomers means mistaken concepts, where people think spirituality means going around and being sanctimonious and being, other people are inferior and you're the one with all the right answers and so forth. That's a misnomer. That's not spirituality. Spirituality begins in that awareness that Peter had, we are sinners. And that's part of this whole, the thing we didn't touch on it in the last session, but Jesus did not come to take away all evil in the world. People think, well, he's a Messiah, should have come. Why do little girls have to suffer? Or why does this boy have a broken leg? And all these different things. And how come all these atrocities and so forth and so on? Well, Jesus didn't come to take away the evil in the world. He came to empower us to overcome it. That's how we actually fulfill God's will. If Jesus took away all the evil in the world, what would we have to do? Nothing. Would we have to? No, we wouldn't have to suffer. We wouldn't have any way of being self-transcendent. We'd be lapdogs. And that's not what we're supposed to be. So the misnomer would be that spirituality, well, it's not an easy street. I think, like it's been said that when you become a Christian, guess what? It doesn't mean that you don't have anything to do anymore. Jesus does everything for you. What it does mean is that he raises the stakes. What does that mean? He raises the stakes. The stakes are higher. You are challenged to do more than you were in the Old Testament. You are challenged to love your enemies, to do good to those who calumniate you. And the fact that the stakes are higher means the rewards are greater. You can truly become like God.
So do you compare that to like when people all of a sudden hit a crisis and have to overcome that crisis, like a stumbling block being put in front of you?
Yeah.
And then you have to find within you how you're going to get over that. And you might call for God's help or God's assistance in helping you to get through it. So along the way, we have these little bumps that come along that helps us grow and get stronger.
Yeah, that's true. But what he's suggesting here is that it's not like, in other words, it's not that you're going to be, it's easier. Once you're a Christian, it's easier to be a good person. Well, it certainly is, because you have grace. But with the grace, you are expected to do greater things. Mm-hmm. And I that one thing in Revelations where they're talking about the different churches, they say, in Laodicea and all this, and you're good and that's and what, and they come to this one and they say, you're neither hot nor cold, you're lukewarm, mediocre, and I want to spew you from my mouth. That was a church there. They're talking about this. Forget which one, but that's what I see when I say what he's trying to say here is that he raises the stakes. The stakes, there's more at issue, as it were. You're more at issue. You're called to be a Christian. You're called to be like Christ. And if you fail that calling and the grace that's there, I think the punishment is far more severe. I mean, your loss is much greater. There are people who never heard of Jesus, and they go do the best they can, but they're not lifted up into that intimacy with God, or that whole idea of Jesus come with such great love for us and to empower us to do all these things, and we just blow it off. That's the stakes are bad. Well, like, when he said Zacchaeus, Zacchaeus is up there in a tree, and he didn't look up and see you snake in a tree, He said, Zacchaeus, come down. I want to eat I want to have dinner at your place today. Beautiful, beautiful. But now Zacchaeus right away, he said, well, if I've taken anything wrong, I'm going to pay it refold 4 times. And man, he responds to that call, to the challenge. So that in misnomer, I suppose, this was a little difficult here. That the idea is that no one should aspire, and if you're in the world, you shouldn't aspire to this devotion. Well, everybody, no one is so important or so busy that they don't have time for spirituality. That's what life's all about, that you have to have, time for this. And if you don't, and of course, the greater the press of human affairs, the greater the need for a life of devotion. The more difficulties there are with jobs and responsibility, like being a parent.
Right.
Hey, they recall that doesn't mean you don't have time to have devotion. It means you have need for devotion. Especially when the kids get to be teenagers, as you probably know. So, okay, the gift of oneself is what it comes down to. And like when Zacchaeus came down, Jesus didn't call, he told him, I didn't come to call us self-righteous, I came to call sinners. And Zacchaeus was one. And he responded to God's gracious design, the opportunity to become like God through God's help. I don't know where we're going from this, but like it says, we are ordained to be like Philothea, whose name means one who is in love with God. Therein lies our true identity. Therein lies our fulfillment. Therein lies our lasting joy. So the tendency for ordinary people, I think, Vicky, is to see themselves as ill-prepared, as he says, for cultivating Christian spirituality. But that's not, just because there's some sanctimonious people running around, that shouldn't make us gun-shy. We should understand that really being a saint in the world today is what the world needs and what will bring us happiness and fulfillment. Well, thanks very much for listening. This is A pretty tough one, but there's a lot of good stuff here to reflect on. Take care. God bless you. We'll see you soon.